I think the COP has been an extraordinary global setting for UAE to bring all the global players, be it governments, private sector, civil society, together for a dialogue has been extraordinary. And we're already seeing so many commitments from different parts of this spectrum. UAE itself has provided quite a bit of input in terms of finance as well as ideas. We're seeing even my institution, the World Bank, has made a very deep commitment of our annual funding of climate to be about 45%, climate and nature. These are extraordinary moments that are happening at the UAE. And so let's see how it ends. And I'm very optimistic. A lot of people ask, what is MIGA? MIGA is the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. It's one of the three agencies of the World Bank. You have the World Bank proper, which is made up of IBRD and IDA, and you have IFC. IBRD and IDA is a lending arm of the World Bank. It directly lends to countries. IFC, International Finance Corporation, provides financial resources directly for the private sector. MIGA, the smallest of the three, has a very particular role. Its role is how it can leverage private finance from markets directly into development. So we are currently today, for every dollar that we guarantee, because that's what we do, we don't lend, we guarantee private finance or market finance into development. For every dollar that we guarantee, we bring in $16 of private finance. This leverage of 1:16 is the largest of any multilateral institution. I'll go even further. For every dollar that we guarantee, 65 cents we reinsure with private reinsurers. That means we spread the risk of investments into the markets. Astonishingly, we were capitalized in 1988 as MIGA with $366 million. Since 1988, this $366 million has been converted into $75 billion of private finance. So when we guarantee, what is it that we guarantee? We guarantee against uncertainties of regulatory framework, policy uncertainties, breach of contracts, if you will, political risk insurance, things that will de-risk and increase the appetite of market finance to come into development. And I think there is no other institution like ours. For example, we will provide 15-year guarantee against war and civil disturbance, protecting investment, against breach of contract, against expropriation. At the same time, we provide credit enhancement for state-owned enterprises, for municipalities, all with one objective: bring in more market finance into development. If I may add, I think there's a turning point today in the architecture of development finance. The traditional architecture coming out of Bretton Woods was the MDBs would use their capital to borrow and on-lend. What MIGA does is what I think is the future of development finance, which is to guarantee and leverage market finance into development. Why I say this is the future, because climate and pandemics and other shocks that are happening around the world require significant amount of finance. That finance is no longer possible just from development finance. But if you can leverage development finance to bring in private finance, that's when you have the multiplier effect. There's a big challenge, and the challenge is, how do MDBs go from just being a lending institution to also becoming a leveraging institution? And that's what MIGA does. So MIGA is very much focused on climate change and supporting both mitigation and adaptation. Just let me give you a few examples. In Egypt, for example, we have guaranteed the financing of a major renewable energy park. It's the largest one in Africa. And when we provided the finance, it increased the tenor of finance. So instead of, say, 7 or 8 year finance, now you can get 10, 15-year finance. Secondly, it lowers the interest rates because market finance gets the surety of de-risking. In fact, our ability to provide market finance in Benban, which is the largest, if you will, renewable energy park in Africa, the financing rating was several notches better than the sovereign rating. That's a direct impact. Similarly, we are actually providing guarantees to Saudi investors in Uzbekistan in water, which is quite extraordinary. So water is an adaptation story. Benban, the renewable energy, is a direct mitigation story. But that's not all. In countries in Africa, where you have the grid electricity is going to take a long time to arrive, in rural areas and in many parts of Africa. What we have done is we have de-risked private investment in mini grids. Now, the mini grid is renewable based. So one could say, is that mitigation and adaptation? Absolutely. But more important, it's energy security using the growth of technology and renewable. So these places in Africa is really not about mitigation. It's about energy security and bringing resilience to communities. These are examples of how MIGA is supporting private finance in climate. MIGA has several success stories. I referred earlier in the questions to the Benban renewable energy, which is a big renewable energy park. That's one example. But one that is very recent, that is quite extraordinary. Ethiopia, despite its challenges today, made an incredible decision to create for the first time a private sector telecom company. It has had traditionally a state-owned company. Now it wanted a private company. You had Vodacom, Safaricom, you had several Japanese investors investing in the private sector telecom company. $1 billion of equity into Ethiopia today through that private telecom company was guaranteed by $175 million of MIGA capital. MIGA capital split between IDA first loss and MIGA second loss. But it's more important that even though it was 175 bringing in $1 billion of equity, over 600 million came from market reinsurers. Now, it's an extraordinary story of how in today's Ethiopia, we're able to bring in private finance in telecom. And this telecom, by the way, is going to lead to an increase in digital infrastructure, which is so important for Africa. Let me give you an example also from MENA. Today in MENA, we have about $1.5 billion of guarantees, private investors in MENA backed by MIGA. And it's across sectors. It's in water, it's in energy, it's in higher education, in countries as diverse from Egypt to Oman to Morocco. It's quite a success story. What we are interested in is increasing our presence in MENA, to bring more private finance into MENA. But there's another part which I think I'd like to mention in the context of this region. This region is now becoming an extraordinary investor globally. Countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, are putting money into investments in Africa, in Asia, in Central Asia. This outward investment of money from MENA is something that we are partnering to de-risk so that more of MENA's money is certain in investing in other parts of the world, even as countries in MENA invest within themselves. I think together these form the real successes of where MIGA is headed.